Hello, everybody. This is Jay from Clandestine Carry Concepts, coming at you with some more videos. I'm going to preface this. I am stacking a couple because I've had a limited amount of time to do shit. With the holiday weekend, or the holiday week slash weekend that we had, on that note, happy 4th. Hopefully, you felt very patriotic in this great country. I think you guys can already tell where I'm going to go with the video today. But yeah, I've had a limited amount of time, so I am going to be stacking up some videos. So the first one that I wanted to get out there was kind of just talk about the state of the nation. So I work for a nonprofit. I run a nonprofit, and I'm partnered with an organization that has access to a multitude of park districts. So one of them invited me out to participate in their parade and for the 4th, and I went. And it was actually very pleasant to see some patriotism for the first time in a long time. Now, I'll give you guys a little bit of a insight to me as a person and how I've grown and developed. During my years as a child, I was basically a first-generation American on my father's side. He was born, I think, like a month after his parents had came to America, but they hadn't even gotten citizenship yet. And all of his siblings were born in Mexico because they moved back and forth until they obtained citizenship. They did get their citizenship. All of my immediate family is citizenized U.S. Civilians. Sorry, English is hard, man. The coffee has not fucking hit me yet, as you can tell. So, when I was a kid growing up, my dad didn't really go in the whole, like, we're Americans route, and he definitely didn't go the, hey, we're Hispanic route. He was kind of just a pretty in-between, just really didn't give a shit. In fact, one of the things is that me and my brother were the whitest of the entire family, and neither of us speak Spanish. My dad just did not want us to learn. So we're not only the whitest ones, but we're the only ones who couldn't speak Spanish, and it would be weird going to family reunions. And my dad would have to stand by us so we could talk with the rest of our fucking family. You know, I guess I could have learned, being 32 now, it's kind of my fault. But my whole point is that when I was growing up, there wasn't really a reinforcement as to should I take pride in my culture, where I come from, or should I take pride in where I'm at today, where we are, and what this nation represents. And then obviously 2001 happened. And the surge of patriotism. I mean, I can't even put it to words because A, I was too young to really understand the scope, but B, because it was overnight, literally overnight for me. It went from never hearing anything about caring about this country, caring about our veterans, our soldiers, sailor, airmen, Marines, and now Space Force Guardians. It was just simply like normal day-to-day life, and it didn't matter if you lived in America and Africa and Russia and China. It didn't matter. You were all just existing. And then all of a sudden there was just this dichotomy. You are an American, you live in America, America is the priority. And obviously as the years go by, we went further and further away from that mentality. Some remnants existed. One thing I always say, working for a nonprofit that exclusively works with veterans, the way we treat our veterans has substantially increased since the Vietnam era, even towards the early Gulf War. So even though everyone will say we're not doing enough for them, myself included, as both a veteran and someone who runs a nonprofit, basically, it's still marginally better than how it was back in the Vietnam era and basically before 2001. But again, going back to it, the sense of patriotism I saw, there were people who took pride in carrying the flag and carrying a banner. There were groups, many that you guys know names of, showcasing and representing a love for community that I've been trying to emulate and spread through my videos here, but also a lot of other prepper, athletic, gun tuber communities have been trying to get out there, is just to build it, foster it, and create it. And it was nice to see in a relatively close village to where I live that that's still a thing. And I had great pride in walking in this parade. I had participated in some parades before when I was younger, mostly for baseball. And, you know, that was still before 2001. Or, yeah, it was still before 2001. So, like, you know, I still remember a little bit of a difference of pride. Yeah, the American flag was there. Yeah, people were there. But, like, this was different. And the weather wasn't that good. It was very muggy out. I live in Illinois, so the humidity can range sometimes worse than Florida. And we had some rain. Not terrible rain, but it just increased the humidity and it just got fucking worse. But there was a really good turnout. And not only was there a good turnout, there were a lot of organizations and a lot of veterans who either actively participated or made it very clear that this is who they are representing for today. And like I said, for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of patriotism. I would not really call myself a patriot, even after serving, because I can tell you a lot of veterans, and most of them will tell you this, but a handful are still kind of embarrassed because of, you know, societal pressure, or maybe where they live is extremely pro-America, things like that. I joined the military to learn a completely different skill set than I already had. I was a touring musician. I had an audio video background, and I just wanted something different. I wanted something with purpose. I wanted a mission. I wanted to learn how to serve because I'd never done that before. But I just felt in my early 20s that I just wasn't where I wanted to be. I mean, maybe at the time had something to offer me, and I had something to offer it. Fortunately, things didn't work out. 2.5 years later, I got forced out by Big Navy. Is what it is. I've had plenty of time to deal and grieve, get over it. But even when I was in, I wasn't that patriotic. In fact, I actually remember one day I paid someone to fucking do flag duty for me when I was in Corps school. I was like, yeah, dude, here's $30. I don't want to do this shit. You know, I think our patriotism waxes and wanes just like the moon. It really depends on how strong is the environment that you're in. How much sense of, at least for me as a Navy guy, honor, courage, and commitment is there around you. Because part of the reason why I don't feel like I was ever a patriot is because I didn't have idols. I didn't have patriotic people in my life. I had some members of my extended family, and I mean like second, third cousins, who, you know, were in Fallujah, for fuck's sake. Like Marines, like the Battle of Fallujah. I had a few who were in Ramadi, but I met these people when I was, 12, 13, and I've not seen them since. 20 years. It's been 20 years since I've seen these people. So when you're in an environment that doesn't foster patriotism, and you don't actively seek it out, I kind of can't fault a lot of people today who kind of turn their backs on it, and they're just like, no, America's fucking falling apart. It's the Roman Empire. It's going to collapse. And when people still have a pride in something like an icon like the flag, I used to scoff at them. I used to laugh and I'd be like, all right, man, if that's what you think. But when I actually am participating in something bigger than myself, I'm seeing people with pride and integrity, I'm just like, man, it's really hard not to get overwhelmed by that shit. Now, the reason I bring this up is because we did just have, a national celebration of one of the biggest days in American history. And before that, we had a presidential debate between a felon and a dementia patient. Do you have any idea how much it pains me that I'm not even making a fucking joke? That I'm actually telling factual information? Now, I fucking hate politics. And unlike a lot of people who are just like, no, I don't like politics, that's particular, but I will gladly indulge you in politics. But I do not participate with our government and our election system because it's broken. It has been broken for a very long time. I've abstained from it for a very long time. This is not some new thing. I didn't vote even when I turned 18 back in the day. I've hated it. Our political party is fucked the hell up, and I've known it since high school. And not just because I was good at my government class or, whatever the fuck they called it. It's because I was just actually awake and aware of what was going on. It's pretty smart for my age. Fortunately, drugs and alcohol and a couple of TBIs ended up changing that, but it is what it is, right? I did not like Trump. And it wasn't even because I was anti-Republican. Even in my mid-20s, I started leaning a little bit more Republican. I feel everyone goes through a phase. And I won't even say a phase. It's a cycle. Everyone goes through a cycle where they're as relevant as possible. And typically, that tends to be a Democratic view. Democrats tend to be the most on ball with what's going on today. As you get older, you get locked in your ways. You get set in your mentality. And that's usually when the Republican side starts kind of making a little bit more sense. And now you start making money. And now that money's getting taxed more. And you're like, fuck that shit. Now I'm definitely leaning more on the other side. Getting on that Republic side of things. And then you either settle where you're at because you make a good amount of money and you're doing a good job. Or some injustice happens. Maybe your child is gay or something and they can't get married and all of a sudden it clicks with you. It's like, that's why the Democrats fight for these things. And then you switch back. Like I said, it's kind of a cycle, but you end up in one way or the other. And unfortunately, unlike a natural progression of growth of humanity where you learn and experience things and you get better, people now get further entrenched in their mentality and you can't dig them the fuck out. Does that sound like a political system that fucking works? No. It sounds like what it is, a fucking popularity contest. How fucking despicable is that? That our electoral system is based off popularity. Now, you may say, well, that makes a lot of sense, though. If someone is saying the right thing and it's getting nationalized attention, they should get it. Well, here's the thing, though. Trump was a fucking celebrity. He had no political background whatsoever. He ran businesses. And granted, he owned more businesses than I do. He makes more money than I do. So I totally understand from a low man's perspective where, yeah, you know what, this guy probably does know some things. But stay in your lane, bro. You know how to make money. And even then, there's a lot of evidence saying that you lost quite more money than you actually really made. And again, made more money than I'll probably make in my entire life. I get that. Not salty on that. Game recognizes game. But he had no political capabilities whatsoever, other than he could fund it, and he was a popular face. I would not have voted for a Democrat at that point because I really didn't see where things... Like I said, I started my cycle, and I was getting more and more Republican-minded, but I absolutely was not going to vote for Trump. I didn't like any of our Democratic nominees, and obviously I didn't even care for fucking Hillary Clinton and fucking all that shit. It's all fucked. All kinds of fucked. But now we fast forward. 2020 election happens. And then we have someone who we would think, having been in a political environment for, 40-something years? I think there's a video of him in the 70s basically saying, like, no, we need segregation or something like that. So, 40, 50 years he's been in the political game. Well, that's another part of the problem right there. I think having an age restriction is, in theory, a good idea. I think you got to be 35, if I remember correctly. You have to be a minimum 35 before you can run for president. I got to tell you, no one does that. You won't even get seriously considered till about 45. And even then, you probably got to be closer to 50. So that's almost 25 years removed from the actual eligibility requirements, right? Well, I can tell you, man, I'm getting close to that 35 age, and I'm not saying that I'm going to be running. But I will say, if I was going to seriously consider being a president, I would do it the right way, unlike Mr. Donald Trump, where I just say a couple of things, build a couple of companies, have my own TV show, and suddenly I'm just a face. I'll get into the political sphere. I'll start local. Start in my county. Work my way up to my region, then my state. try and be in the House or the Senate. You know, it feels like there's a natural progression, right? You need to understand your constituents. How can you understand your constituents when you oversee the entire country as your first experience? One may argue that since Trump had managerial experience, that qualifies. Well, I did not care for Trump, never cared for Trump, but I will say, as a service member at the time, and then getting out a veteran, he did do a lot of positive things for veterans and military members. So I will obviously give him kudos to that. 2020, I was not going to vote for Trump no matter what, but I didn't vote for Biden either. I voted Green Party. And you want to know something? I can't tell you how many people actually told me that they respected my choice for that. I mean, a serious amount of people, because I've never been shy. This isn't a fucking birthday wish where if you reveal it, you're not going to get the choice that you want. No. I have been so firm about my political views for almost 15 years. All right? Keep in mind, I've gone through puberty since then. I've gone through maturation. I've gone through the military. I've had a lot of very, very wild life experiences. But my mentality on the political system has not changed. So that's got to fucking count for something, right? But I voted Green Party. And I felt that was really the only time in history that they had a real shot of trying to make something happen, to just make a statement to the system. And of course that didn't fucking work. And that's fine. I'm not salty about it. I knew getting into it, it was a martyr type move. Biden gets elected. And it's rapidly apparent this motherfucker is declining. And that's why I go back to the whole age thing, right? Like, I feel you need to have some skin in the game. You got to know how things work. You got to learn from your constituents, and you can only do that on the small scale. I used to be a touring musician. I used to have to sell myself like a fucking product. And you can only break into that by your local area. All right? You're not playing top venues just because you live in Chicago. I worked my way up to these venues. And I had to build a rapport with people. I had to make sure what I was doing was authentic and sincere, because it doesn't matter if you play good music, if what you're saying is fucking bullshit and no one relates to it. It's like country. Like, I couldn't fucking play country and mean it. I'm not from there. I'm from Chicago, the northwest fucking suburbs. I know like a little bit of country life whenever I go to Southern Illinois, but that's about it. There's no sincerity. So how would I be able to make that work? I know it seems like a leap, but it's really the same concept. If you don't know who you're with in your community, you're not going to know what's going on in the grander scale of things. People don't understand why is there such a political divide, because how many times do you go and you talk with someone and you're like, fuck, dude, that he knows it. He's got it. He's right. He agrees with me. He knows where I'm going. I guarantee you that happens more than this shit that you see on the news where it's like, oh, another blue-haired Karen was doing this protest, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, fuck you. I live in the city, and I've seen like 3 protests since I came back, all right? Most of them were all the whole Palestinian thing, which I'll get into in another video. But like, big fucking deal. The conversations I have with people when I take public transportation, when I'm working, when I'm signing veterans to my organization, when I'm participating in my community events, these are people I would go and have a beer with. In fact, yesterday I had a beer with a bunch of brand new people. One of them I had met during a veteran community function. Every single person there. Wildly differing views on the political scale. But we all agreed on a mass amount of stuff. So how is a president, how is a Senate, how is a House of Representatives, how are they all supposed to take millions and millions and millions of people's perspective into account? Well, people tend to forget, and you can look this up. You could Google this. We're not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. A republic, all right, if you're like me and you grew up with the Star Wars prequels, a republic is that giant area where there's party representatives for everything. And they all say something, and they all get a vote at something. How the fuck do you boil that down to two political spectrums? So the whole reason I'm bringing up this video and making people aware of this is that we just celebrated our national independence. Before that, we had a debate, which basically showed the world how weak we are. And I mean it, man. I have never felt more bolder to take on things that I'm not going to say in this video because I'm not trying to put myself on the priority list. I'm already on the list, but I'm not trying to be like moved up a little bit, you know. But I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one. There are some other people who have more balls than me to say that shit. I'm gonna get there. When I think the time is right, I told you my content is going to change. And it's going to change pretty much overnight because of my inconsistency with uploading. But there'll be a reason for it. And that reason is simply because we are a weak country right now. And if we continue on this path and we elect one of these two fucking people, it's going to have the same outcome. One's just going to happen quicker than the other. I would personally vote for Trump because he's buying us time. He is going to use the wheel and deals that he was capable of. He's going to slow the machine over in Russia. But the problem is, the blue side has kind of really, I don't want to say they've developed. I want to say that they've kind of just took an example of the last 20 years with Afghanistan, and I think they started realizing what works. And I think those people are going to do some pretty heinous stuff. And then keep in mind, he's still a felon. We are going to be changing our constitution potentially so he can be a president and stay a president before his charges go through. That's fucked up. That is still a level of tyranny, whether it's a positive or negative. That is very wrong. That is a lot of overreach. But like I said, he'll buy us time. We will have a few more years to stock up, prep, put your money in some financial assets, and be ready for what's coming. If we get Biden within a year, Russia and or China is going to grow a pair. They're going to fucking do some shit. They're going to constitute a draft here. We're going to fucking say no. And civil war. I see it, man. Like, I feel it. Like, I know it. It's like all the media that we've been consuming, all this love for apocalypse stuff and, you know, all these hypotheticals. It's really been conditioning us, brainwashing us. This is the outcome that I see because this is the outcome that I know. I'm not telling you how you should vote. You are an American with God-given rights. Whether you believe in God or not, whether you believe in one nation under God, you are entitled. You deserve. You have been born into with rights other countries have genocided for. But I will tell you, man, I think this is the last 4th of July before things really change. And this is going to be a turning point in American history. This was going to be the last time that this was just a celebration of something that happened almost 300 years ago. 4th of July next year is going to mean something very different. And I'm not trying to scaremonger. I'm not trying to install fear. I'm not telling you to go buy a product. I'm not telling you to invest. I'm warning you. Whoever wins this race, we're going to lose. And this is just simply a devil you know and a devil you don't. I want you all to seriously consider what we can do to change this world and what we can change here in America. Because I saw patriotism for the first time and it opened my eyes. It made me aware to what I can do in my life right now. And I got to tell you, man, I can't see how people sit by. I can't see how people have just allowed this to happen. Or worse, they voted it in to happen because they were too short-sighted. Our voices can be heard. But if they don't hear our voices, our guns are going to have to speak for us. And our guns speak much, much louder. So, I'll wrap it up by simply saying I hope you had yourself a very good 4th of July, because I feel next year this holiday is going to mean something very different. I hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping there's some things that we can do to prevent a catastrophic failure of society. But I think that ship set sailed about 15, 20 years ago. And now we have to deal with the repercussions of actions of those before us. Be smart, be safe, and be ready.